Hello and what is going on everyone, hope you're doing well. It's Scape here, and today I have a guide to show you guys how to make moss golems easy in Runescape 3. Any of you guys that have actually done moss golems before, you know that they hit an absolute ton and it's pretty hard to sustain yourself. So if any of you guys have enjoyed my Nightmare Creatures or Ripper Demon guide, you're going to love this one. This is a very similar method to them ones, and big shout out for Detonate for finding the spot. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to pretty much AFK moss golems, and you can make upwards of 37 mil an hour, getting 500 kills an hour. This is not going to be as many kills an hour as using melee, but it's a great alternative for anyone out there struggling killing these guys. I'm also going to show you guys two setups, one of them being relatively expensive and one of them being slightly cheaper, so that hopefully a lot more of you guys can use this method out there. So first of all, let's actually take a look at the requirements that you're going to need to do this method. In order to kill the moss golems in general, you need 108 Slayer. I don't think this is too much to ask for. There's plenty of Slayer fanatics out there that love Slayer much more than myself, and the experience rates that you can get nowadays are absolutely cracked. Like, this task alone, completely AFK, is going to get you 1.2 mil Slayer XP an hour without any boosts, and this is just one task. You're also going to have to have partially completed Artisan's Workshop to unlock the Royal Cannon. The Royal Cannon and the auto-fill upgrade make it so that you never have to go to your cannon to fill it up with cannonballs. If you do not have this, you're going to be taking way too much damage and losing too much efficiency running back and forth to your cannon. So this is a must-have for this method. You're also going to be using the Ancient Spellbook, so Desert Treasure is a must-have quest that you need to have completed to do this method. If you do not have this completed, you can simply just use melee to kill these, but this guide is going to focus on using ancient magics to kill these to sustain yourself. Now that we've covered the actual requirements for this method, I'm going to talk you through some recommendations. First up, you're going to want the best overloads that you have. I'd recommend having at least Supremes. You don't need too high of a herbal level over regular overloads to have these, but I would not do this method without overloads on your account. So I'm going to put this recommendation on here, and that's 92 magic and 90 plus defense. I'm assuming if you have 108 Slayer, you already have these maxed out, so you can pretty much ignore these for the most part. I'm also going to recommend that you have 73 summoning and you have ancient summoning unlocked. The whole reason behind this is so that you can use the Blood Reaver familiar, and this will basically make it so that you can do a little bit of extra damage when using your Blood Barrage spells. No worries if you don't want to use a Blood Reaver, it's only going to do a marginal increase to the amount of damage that you're going to be dealing to these guys. So if you didn't want to bring that, you could bring a Unicorn familiar instead if you're struggling to stay alive. Personally, I bring 5 to 6 food per task, and I'll be completely honest with you, with the setup that I use, the second setup that I'm going to be showing you, you don't actually really ever use any food. Now that we've covered the requirements and recommendations, I'm going to take you guys into the gear setup and loadout that I'd recommend for this method. Before we actually get into the weapons and armor that I'd suggest, I'm going to cover the inventory. The inventory stays the same regardless of your gear setup, so I'll quickly cover that now. You want your best overloads that you have. So if you have Elder Overloads, do not hesitate to use them here. You want to bring Weapon Poison +++. This is an insane increase in damage for such little effort. You literally need to drink a dose every 12 minutes, and you can pretty much get away with just having one dose per task. You also need 2 super restores per task of moss golems if you're using this method. So you can bring more if you want, but I personally only bring 2 in my preset. You're also going to want to make sure you have your Royal Cannon and Cannonballs. Just to be safe, I'd bring at least 2,000 to 3,000 cannonballs per task. You're not going to use that many, but there's no reason not to just have a stockpile of them. Next up in my event, I like to bring a Blood Reaver. This is going to let us increase further our DPS to the moss golems. If you are struggling to stay alive, you could bring a Unicorn and some Healing Aura Scrolls, and you will find this method ridiculously easy. Next up, just some standard Slayer stuff. I like to bring an Ancient Elven Ritual Shard and an Enhanced Excalibur. These are not needed by any means, but they're just nice to have if you have them unlocked. And then finally in my preset, I like to actually bring a Slayer Cape. If you have the Master Slayer Cape, obviously you're going to want to have that because it lets you force assignments every 5 tasks. If you don't have that, no worries, just bring a level 99 Slayer Cape, just so that you can teleport to Laniakea when your task is done to get another assignment. Now that I've covered the inventory, which as I've said does not change between the next 2 setups I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to cover the beginner setup, quote unquote, that I would recommend for this method. I'd recommend having a tier 90 Noxious Staff. I wouldn't really recommend going any lower than this. You need as much accuracy as you can get, and I'm assuming if you have 108 Slayer, you probably have enough money to get this on your account. Next up, you're going to want some tier 80 magic armor in the form of Virtus Robes or Anima Core of Seren. It doesn't matter what one you get whatever one you want. Just make sure you have tier 80 magic armor for this. As I said, these hit a ton. In a similar vein, you're going to want to make sure you have an Amulet of Souls. For those of you unaware what the Amulet of Souls does, It makes it so that your soul split heals more, and it also makes it so your deflection prayers actually deflect an extra 10% of the damage that you would be taking. So in this case, your protection melee would go from protecting you from 50% all the way up to 60%, so you definitely want to make sure you have this. Cinderbane gloves are also a must-have. These are susceptible to weapon poison, and these stacked with your weapon poison plus plus are going to greatly increase the amount of DPS that you can do very easily. It doesn't really matter what magic boots you're going to be using. You're going to be on legacy combat, so your highest level, cheapest degradable magic boots that you can have. I personally use Blaster Fusion boots. If you've got a pair of Virtus boots, that's fine. Whatever boots you have, just bring. Next up, you're going to either need a rune pouch or the runes for the Blood Barrage spells. All you need to simply do this is blood runes and fire runes. Please note that using the Noxious Staff is going to be relatively more expensive per hour in terms of cost, because you're going to have to use Blood Barrage in order to optimally kill these with this setup. Your ring, if you bring a Ring of Death just in case your prayer drops, it will save you a bit of money if you get teleported out. If not, any stat boosting ring works fine. I have found that because these are weak to fire spells themselves, it is actually really great to use a Reaver's ring here. Normally you would lose 5% accuracy and gain a 5% critical damage chance. So if you have the Reaver's ring, it works a charm here. And finally, you're going to want an Illuminated Book of Chaos God Book. There are other God Books out there that deal AoE damage, but I'm pretty sure this is the best for AoE, especially on a Slayer task. So you're going to want to make sure you have your Zami book with charges, and you will be using that to increase your kills an hour. So now we're going to go on to what I'd want to call the advanced setup. This is going to be relatively more expensive. Because it's magic, it's not going to be too extreme. It's just going to cost more in general. So obviously the inventory stays the same, and that will be on screen now. But I'm going to cover you what I'd recommend changing if you have the following gear that I'm going to suggest. A tier 92 Inquisitor Staff is going to be the best in slot magic weapon for killing these. They do attack with melee, so you get all of the buffs and bonuses that you would from this staff. As a side note, if you are using Inquisitor Staff and they are weak and susceptible to it, you can actually swap your spell from Blood Barrage over to Blood Burst. I've done some intensive testing with both Blood Barrage and Blood Burst with this setup, and I can confirm that Blood Burst is pretty much just the same as using Blood Barrage. So you may as well use the cheaper alternative. You're not going to save pretty much any time using Blood Barrage. For those of you interested in why this happens, basically because of the amount of buffs that you're getting with this staff, you're already kind of hitting the cap that you would be with Legacy. Using Blood Burst, it's kind of overkill to use the Blood Barrage spell. Next up, I'd recommend using Elite Tectonic. The reason we jump all the way to Elite Tectonic and not regular Tectonic, it's just simply cheaper to use. It's not a case of, oh, I'm going to use the best gear for the sake of it. It is genuinely cheaper to use than regular Tectonic. So if you have Elite Tectonic, you do want to use it here. Same as the other setup, you're going to want your Amulet of Souls and Cinderbane gloves. If you did want, you could use an Essence of Finality. It's only going to give you moderate boosts, and you're not going to be able to use your special weapon anyways. So it is a bit overkill in my honest opinion. I'd recommend just keeping to the Amulet of Souls because it's cheaper to use. Same again, any magic boots will do. I use Blaster Fusions. And as I previously mentioned, the Reaver's Ring works a charm here if you have one on your account. So moving on to something that's arguably just as important as your gear setup itself is optimally perking out your weapons and armor. On screen now, I am going to be just showing you bluntly everything that I'd suggest having. This being said, this is to optimally do certain Slayer tasks such as Ripper Demons, Nightmare Creatures, and Moss Golems. If you were going to set up your gear to do these 3 tasks, I'd recommend pairing your Biting 4 with Demon Slayer specifically for Ripper Demons. But please be aware that this is not the best setup for your magic gear in-game for bossing. This is very niche and very specific for these Slayer creatures. I do not use magic anywhere else in the game, so this is what I opt to perk out my gear with. First up, you're going to want Precise 6 and Genocidal. You can obtain this by using 9 historic components in an ancient weapon gizmo, and this will give you a 7.5% boost to your weapon flat. That's from the Precise 6. And the Genocidal will increase the amount of damage that you're able to do as your task goes on, so it's well worth having for any task. Equilibrium 4 and Ruthless 3 can be obtained at roughly a 1 in 20 chance at 120 invention using an ancient weapon gizmo with 8 time worn components. If you are heavily into your Slayer, I definitely recommend getting this paired together. It isn't too expensive. It will cost you 20 to 25 mil. Equilibrium 4 will give you a 5.3% increase into your overall damage. The Slayer task Ruthless 3 is really nice because it will give you an overall 7.5% increase in damage once you maintain the stacks. For those of you unaware of how this works, every time you kill an enemy, it will start a 20-second timer, and you can increase the amount of damage for every enemy that you kill within these 20 seconds to a maximum of 5 stacks. Every stack with Ruthless 3 will give you a 1.5% damage increase. So pretty much when you're doing Slayer and you're killing something that you can kill every 20 seconds, you're going to have a 7.5% flat damage increase for the duration of your task. So this is well worth having on your gear. So the most important perks that you're actually going to want on your armor is Devoted 4 and Enhanced Devoted 4. Normally for bossing, this combination will not be very effective, purely due to the fact that when you have both of them, the effectiveness of it comes from the cadence of attacks that you're able to receive from enemies. When you're on a Slayer task, you're getting attacked a ton because you normally have 5, 6, 7 enemies on you at once, and this makes it so that you're very much more likely to have Enhanced Devoted 4 proc followed by a Devoted 4 proc straight after. So having both of these results in you taking overall a lot less damage when on your Slayer task, and it is very important for Nightmare Creatures, Ripper Demons and Moss Golems so that you can overall survive much longer and sustain yourself a lot easier. In order to get Devoted 4, you need 7 Zamorak components followed by 2 Saradomin components, and Enhanced Devoted 4 is made by using 9 Faceted components. The final 2 perks that I'd recommend having to increase your damage output are Biting 4 and Crackling 4. Biting 4 increases your damage output by making it so you're more likely to deal a critical hit to your opponent, and Crackling 4 will periodically deal an explosion which will deal bonus damage to your opponents every 60 seconds. If you are likely to do Ripper Demons on your account, I'd heavily recommend pairing your Biting 4 with Demon Slayer, and this will ensure that you do a lot of bonus damage when killing demons with this gear setup. Next up, I'm going to cover some of the most useful items when doing this method. It's really only advised that you kill these on a Slayer task, so anything that's going to increase the duration of your Slayer task is going to be extremely useful. First up, a Master Slayer cape will make it so that you can actually pick 20% of your Slayer tasks with a roughly 1 in 5 chance of it proccing when wearing it. You have to make sure you wear the cape for this to happen, and essentially this will let you pick creatures of the Lost Grove even more. As you are going to be on a Slayer task, the Slayer helmet stand on Anachronia is going to be really useful, as this will let you gain your Slayer helmet bonus whilst wearing a regular magic helmet. If you do not have this, make sure you wear your Slayer helmet when killing these. Next up, you're going to want to make sure you have Qualm Incense sticks if you want to increase your kills an hour. This will overall increase the potency of damage that your weapon poison deals, and thus will make you deal even more damage to the Moss Golems. In a similar vein to the Slayer cape, the Slayer Introspection Relic, which is obtained doing Archaeology from 118, will actually make it so that you can pick the maximum number of Slayer creatures you get assigned, or the minimum amount. So this will enable you to make it so that every time you get a Moss Golem task, you're going to get the maximum amount of 120 of them. The Luck of the Dwarves Relic is also useful so that you can benefit from using other rings, but if you do not have this relic unlocked, then you can simply just wear the Luck of the Dwarves Relic. You're not going to be missing out on too much. The Death Ward Relic is heavily slept on when doing Slayer, and not many people actually know about its usefulness. For those of you unaware, this basically makes it so that the lower your hit points are, the less damage that you take, and this is extremely useful for any task where you take a high amount of damage. Whether it be Nightmare Creatures, Ripper Demons, or Moss Golems, the Death Ward Relic is absolutely game changing. Premier Artifact is also another thing that a lot of people seem to forget or just sleep on. You can activate this once a day, and it will give you the following boost for an hour. It will make it so that when you're fighting enemies, there is a 10% chance that it will not count towards your Slayer task, which effectively for an hour a day increases the amount of Slayer enemies per task that you kill by 10%. So if you get a maximum task of 120, this will make it so you can kill an extra 12 in that task and give you an even greater chance to get yourself a set of Cinderbane gloves or an Ancient Elven Ritual Shard. And then finally, you're going to want to make sure you have a Vampirism Aura. I know this isn't going to be much of a surprise to most people, but you get hit an absolute ton from Moss Golems, and a Vamp Aura is basically going to make it so that you don't need to eat when using the setups that I've shown you in this video. So in order to get to Moss Golems, all you need to do is go to the PVM hub and change one of your portals to Solak. And then once you teleport to Solak, you want to follow down the path that I take, go through this archway, and then you should arrive just at the Moss Golems. If you have yet to got your Reaper kill for Solak and you have not unlocked the portal, one thing that you can do, you can use the grouping system to set up a group for Solak and teleport to the same place. Once you've got to Moss Golems, you want to place a cannon where I do, just to the west of this little patch of grass. The only reason you're going to be using a cannon here is to aggro them onto you and get them into the lure spot. Before you place down your cannon, make sure you have your protection prayers on and you've drank an overload dose to reduce the amount of damage that you take. Once you place your cannon, you want to run up into this little spot that I've ran here, just through the tree. And when you get here, your cannon's going to aggro all of the moss golems within range, and they will come up to you and stack perfectly so that you can AoE them down. The most important thing when doing this method is making sure that your prayer and overload do not drop. If either of these drop, you will die, and if your prayer drops, you will pretty much die within seconds. Now that you're in the spot, make sure to drink your weapon poison, activate your Zami book, and put on your vampirism aura, and it's pretty much just AFK from here. Every single task will take you between 12 and 15 minutes depending on your gear setup. I've found that when using a Noxious Staff and the Tier 80 Virtus, your task will take approximately 1 to 2 minutes longer. So if that's the gear setup that you have, you are going to be making slightly less GP an hour. So I've done like probably 5 to 6 tasks using Virtus and a Noxious Staff, and I've done 10 to 15 tasks using the other setup. The main difference that I've found between the two is that if you do not get enough Enhanced Devoted or Devoted procs when using the Tier 80 Magic Armor, you may need to eat slightly more often than the other one. As I said, when using the Tier 92 setup, you barely need to eat. It's just there just in case of emergencies. But if you didn't want to bring food, you could simply just bring a Unicorn Familiar with Healing Scrolls, and that will do it. That will sustain you really easily. Just keep an eye on your health just in case you don't get the procs on your Devoted and Enhanced Devoted. The bulk of your profits from this task are going to come from your Cinderbane Gloves and Ancient Elven Ritual Shards. The reason that you want to actually kill these on task is because the drop rate of each of these items becomes a 1 in 1,500. If you're off task, this drop rate unfortunately increases to 1 in 5,000. Essentially, by getting 500 kills an hour, you're able to make 36.98 mil, and 27.4 mil of that is coming from your Cinderbane Gloves, and 5 mil is coming from your Ancient Elven Ritual Shards. In my honest opinion, this is nowhere near as good as Ripper Demons, but the fact is, it's extremely AFK, and I'm honestly going to be using this method when killing Moss Golems in the future. Like, I kid you not, once you try this out, you can literally sit here, go make a cup of tea, do whatever you want, watch a film. Like, as long as you keep your prayer up, you'll be able to do this ridiculously easily. As this is a task very similar to Nightmare Creatures, where you're pretty much banking on getting that glove drop, it is something that's going to average out over time, and by getting 500 kills an hour, you are going to be making 37 million GP over time. For those of you that are looking to do this off task, which as I said, I'd heavily recommend not doing so, you will only be making about 10.5 mil an hour. For those of you interested, from a lot of testing, I've found that you're pretty much able to get 1.2 million Slayer XP an hour, and you're able to get about 1.5 million Combat XP an hour as well. As I said, this is nowhere near as good as doing the melee method, but I feel like it's a lot more AFK than the melee method in itself. And for those of you guys that are struggling out there staying alive, this will honestly change your life when killing Moss Golems. I've found that when using melee specifically, no matter what I do, no matter what I try, if I try to AFK it, it's very hit or miss. You will come back occasionally and you will just be dead. It's not something you can fully AFK, and I've found that with this magic method, you truly can just AFK as much as you want to your heart's content. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and found it useful. Once again, big shout out for Detonate for showing me the method and the spot. He's literally got like over 400 mil combined Slayer XP on his account, and he really does just enjoy doing Slayer, and he's currently going for the Slayer title, which good luck for him getting that. As always, if you found the video useful, drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss out on any future content. We have tons of other Slayer guides on the channel. Nihil, Nightmare Creatures, Edemus, Living Wyverns, you name it. We've got loads of them on there. Tons of ways that you can make some easy money on your account. So if you're struggling with making money and you want to check out any of my other content, feel free to check out our Ultimate Money Making playlist on the channel. As always, any feedback's hugely appreciated on improving the channel in the long run. So if you've got any feedback or any suggestions, let me know in the comment section down below. And good luck grinding your Slayer. Thank you all for watching.